All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Deerfield Valley Housing Committee. I know it's been a little bit since we've gotten together. Busy schedules, lots of conflicts going on, which are completely understood. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order at 1:03. Any additions to or changes to the agenda today? Oh,
We have time, it would be great if we could talk about the landlord support group. I know that it's kind of like we've been talking and talking and talking, but I don't know. I think that it might be a good idea, maybe at the end of the agenda, if we have time.
yep,
That'd be great.
we can do that. Okay. Other than that, before we get started, Keith, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I've recently relocated full-time to Vermont. I've owned up here for 10 years in Wilmington. I'm right off the Haystack Golf Course over there in the Mountain Ponds development. And what happened was I started a company. I've been in construction in New York City from a tradesperson up to real estate development. And at this point in my life, my children are grown up, moving, and it's time to start thinking about what was next in life. So what I had thought was I would open a construction consulting company down here, which I've kind of have going, but it would allow me to pursue other things. Growing up as an Eagle Scout on Long Island and things like that, I was brought in the community service, so on and so forth. And my oldest daughter graduated college during COVID, and she had a passion to work in the ski industry and live in Vermont, which she currently does up in West Pollitt now for 2 years that she owns her own home. But the problem was starting out, she couldn't just do that. And then ended up having to move 2 hours away from Killington, where she had had a job lined up, but got laid off due to COVID. Standard protocol, it made sense, right? So, but what I noticed was that affordable housing was an issue, right? In particular, these people that could afford to start out, they have young salaries, they want to work, they have a passion for these industries, but yet they can't afford to live somewhere. And slowly but surely, I had almost gone and tried to purchase the Viking Motel, got introduced to Gretchen, and the next thing you know, I'm going to housing conferences going, wait a minute, I know how to build. I'm a developer. I'm passionate about workforce housing. Why don't I try to give it a try? So that's why I'm here, right? Because I believe that, you know, in order to get people to want to work in this valley and live up here, they got to be able to afford to live here. And those young starting out, unless their families set them up, we're not going to get that talent. So that's been the focus. And then I found out, hey, wait a minute, I can also be trying to help with senior living, which would allow for people to move out to, kind of take advantage of the new zoning. So it's a whole process that I've slowly started to find. And I'm just hoping to be here and, maybe give some of my expertise and keep my mouth shut otherwise, if you know what I mean. And, learn what it is that you guys are doing already.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Keith. That's great. We're excited to have you, and we love when people are ready to participate. So, um, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. Item number 2 is the USDA-led abatement grant program presentation for the Deerfield Valley, and I will Gretchen take over the introductions.
Yes, so I would like to welcome Kate Kirkwood. She is a lead abatement expert and has written multiple grants and managed them and implemented things in New Hampshire. And her other hat is she's a select board member in the town of Marlborough. So Kate, maybe you would like to do a little bit more explanation, or you can just go right for it about this lead abatement grant.
Sure. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off. Thanks very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to keep this really short today. I know you have a lot of other items on your agenda, but when I'm done, I will put in the chat my contact information. So anybody who wants to talk further can reach out to me. I'm really excited to be here. So short story about me. I was I was a business person. I have an MBA, an entrepreneur, opened a few businesses over the years, owned a few properties, but really, I was a teacher. I was a trainer. That was really my thing. And I taught mostly business courses, college level business courses. So I was doing some consulting, gosh, almost 20 years ago now, in the early 2000s in Manchester, New Hampshire, when the city of Manchester had to put out a call for outreach and education person because they had a situation where a 2-year-old child died of lead poisoning in the city. Her name was Sunday A. Beck. Some of you may know the story. I'm happy to tell you more about it another time, but it was just eye-opening for me. I had no idea lead poisoning was still a thing. I had little kids myself in those days, and I just had no clue that kids could die from this, but in fact, they do. And New Hampshire, I lived in New Hampshire for since I was in my 20s, until just almost 4 years ago now, I moved to Vermont. So New Hampshire has really not a very good reputation with regard to childhood lead poisoning. We poison a lot of kids in that state, and adults too. We have actually one of the most recent adult deaths of lead poisoning in the state too, which is a 35-year-old police sergeant by the name of Thomas Kelly, who did a lot of training in indoor firing ranges and breathed in a lot of lead dust that way. So when I worked all over the state, I was responsible for thousands of lead abatement projects. And along the way, I wrote grants, and I got funding to abate these properties, and also built a team. So I've worked with a number of lead abatement contractors and administrative staff. And I managed to get myself educated because I knew very little about lead, but I used the grant money to go to school basically and take all the courses and all the training I could find. And I currently hold 7 lead licenses, all that it's possible to hold actually in the country, as well as in Vermont and in New Hampshire. So I am a lead abatement contractor currently in Vermont. I'm also a training provider, so I teach lead abatement. I own a company called Lead EDU, which we're nationally certified. I'm president of a national organization called Lead and Environmental Hazard Associations, where we hold conferences all around the country. We held one in New Hampshire where the Vermont folks attended as well. It was just over the river in Portsmouth. And we ended up having all 6 New England states attend. It was a really great conference. So the point is I'm really enmeshed in this stuff. My most recent project, once I got over here, so I live in Windham County, right? And I wanted to get to know people. My kids are all grown and gone now. This is kind of my time. I wanted to build a new community. And so I volunteered to serve on the Energy Committee. Next thing I know, there's a vacancy on the Select Board, and they said, would you? And I said, sure. And here I am. So this is the end of my first year on the Select Board, having a great time getting to know a lot about how community works in Vermont. So driving around the Brattleboro area, and what I see is there's a lot of similarities to Sullivan County, New Hampshire, where I built a program. By similarities, I mean age of the housing stock, income levels, number of children under 6, that sort of thing. And what I see is a really big need for affordable housing, as you just addressed, and Keith, and also for lead abatement. I mean, it's like anything. It's like if you, I don't know, build stone walls, everywhere you go, you see stone walls. Well, everywhere I go, I see lead. So I can pick it out like that, and there's a lot of it here, and I worry about it. I worry about the kids, and I worry about the adults. So I want to help in my neighborhood, in my community. So I decided to write a grant here in Windham County, and I couldn't do it myself. You have to have a government agency sponsor you. So I ran around and spoke to the select boards, and just talked about what we could do. And having just come off of a $2 million grant in Sullivan County, I can give you a couple of quick numbers. In about 3 years, we inspected 70 units. We abated 66 of them. We averaged $30,000 per abatement. We spent a lot of money, most of which was HUD money. Some of it came from property owners. Typically, property owners will pay 10%. The grant programs will pay 90%. We license lead abatement contractors. We have a competitive bid process to pick the contractor who wins each bid. It's a very well-structured process that HUD's been doing all around the country now for decades, and is still doing. All those shenanigans in Washington does not seem to have affected these programs, I have to say. At this moment, at least, we feel pretty confident housing is allowed to continue at the same way that we've been doing it. HUD dumped 420 million at the end of 2024 across the country in these programs. They're hugely successful. I was invited by HUD to DC just in December, just recently, to come and talk about how we built a successful program in this small little rural county in New Hampshire during COVID, which is what we did. So we spent that money and met all our benchmarks and then some. So they just gave Sullivan County 4 million. So I said, well, that's great. And I'm managing that program. I've got a team of people over there. I was on the phone with them all morning. They're going to do 100 units or so over the next couple of years. And so, but I live here now and I want to build a program here. So I'm trying to find a source, a sponsor, basically. I ran into Mark Anderson, Sheriff Anderson at Windham County, and he said, I'll help you with this. And he did. He stepped up. And so the county is actually the program, they hold the grant. Windham County Sheriff's Office, I guess, holds the grant officially. And they have hired me as a project coordinator to manage it for them. We put out the word that we need 2 full-time employees to run this. And so we're interviewing on Monday. I expect next week to be able to announce who those people are. And I will stay about, 25% time. I'll be with the program about 10 hours a week through the program to make sure that, they stay on track and everything goes well. But really, it will be run by local people. I don't know who yet, because we haven't hired them yet. So my job will be to continue to go out into the community, to talk to groups like this about what we're doing and to build the capacity. So what we got here in Windham County is what's called a capacity building grant. It's $1 million. And within 2 years, they expect us to build capacity. And that means to get property owners, housing providers on board, both investor owners who might have buildings that need to be renovated that are not housing at this moment, or housing that is deteriorated and needs to, maybe doesn't meet code or doesn't meet standards. We can bring that up to standard. Or even housing that maybe just is old, and they don't even know that there's lead, but they think it might be. So we can come in, we can do an inspection at no cost to the property owner, single family, multifamily, doesn't matter. And then we can make a plan when we see, is there lead? How much lead? So that's one sort of pipeline we're building. Property owners are interested who will be on a waiting list, because at the moment we don't have money to actually do the abatement. The second part of what we have to do is build capacity of contractors, because as some of you may be thinking, there are not contractors out there to do this work. And you're right, they're not. I've been doing that research for the last year or so. I've been working with, there are 2 other grant programs in the state. I've been working with the one that's in Burlington, just the city of Burlington. And then the VCLT, is it? That does the whole state. I haven't cut the alphabet soup down yet, but
VHCB, Vermont
Thank
Housing
you.
and Conservation Board.
That's the
Close
one.
though, close, Kate.
All right, I'm going to get it. Anyway, I've been working with both of them, and what they said to me is, please don't start a grant in Windham County. We don't have enough contractors. We're afraid you're going to steal our contractors. I'm honest, right? So I said, well, let's fix that. Let's build the capacity of contractors first. So next week, I have 5 new lead abatement supervisors getting certified in Vermont. I'm really excited. And that's just the beginning. I mean, we have free money. This capacity building grant is to build capacity. So they've given us money to train 100 people. We will probably train more, because I also can get some other funding, as we start to build other funding, match funding will come on board, state funding and so forth. So we will train contractors, and that will do 2 things. That will build the capacity of the other 2 grant programs. They told me in Burlington, it takes them a year sometimes to complete a project, because they're waiting for their contractor to be done with a previous job to come and get onto this one. So, I mean, we bang through 50 a year across the river in Sullivan County. It's not going to be a problem to build this capacity. I have a meeting on the 18th next week with the Vermont Asbestos and Lead Program and 12 new contractors from other states, New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, that we have invited to talk with us to see how easy it is to transfer their license to Vermont. So we will bring in contractors from other states, and we will build capacity from in the state with the other renovation contractors who would like to take on abatement as another tool in their tool belt, right? And that's the 5 that are training next week, for example, are that category. They're people that are already in Vermont, just thinking about whether they want to add this lead abatement. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions. the bottom line is we're going to spend about a year building these 2 pipelines, property owners, contractors. And I'll do that with the 2 new people that we're hiring next week, and Mark Anderson and his team. HUD will pay for those sessions. And then at the end of the year, we are asked, or beginning of next year, we're asked to do our first few lead abatement projects, maybe 5 units. And then HUD will evaluate us. And if we did a good job, then they'll give us more money to have a larger grant like they have across the river. So that's what we've got going on. Questions?
Any questions for Kate?
What areas does it cover, Kate? Is it just they have to be in that county?
So yeah, to do the work on the properties, it will be Windham County, but for the training, we can go anywhere in the state. What I wrote in the application, it's the advantage of being your own grant writer, right? What I wrote in the application was increasing the capacity anywhere in the state will increase the capacity in Sullivan. I mean, in Windham, because we have a statewide grant, the contractors are going to go anywhere, wherever they want. So we can't keep them in Windham. So I got HUD to agree that we could train anywhere in the state. My hope is that we will offer classes, I don't know, up in Northfield. I did one already at the Job Corps up there. And so if we can do classes all over the state, and if you have connections, please let me know, then we'll have contractors wherever. And so that means that the statewide program, they will have contractors local to wherever their jobs are. They don't need to be paying extra for them to come up from here,
Kate, is there something that we can do?
Yeah, so it's still early. This is really early on. Like I said, we haven't even hired the staff yet. We got the funding, and then Mark and I had to go to DC to a conference, and we got trained. And then we had all this craziness in Washington, where they cut the budgets and nobody could come, and then they gave it back again. And so it's all kind of a little bit behind where I'd like it to be right now. But in about, I don't know, 3 months, I would say, when we get the staff up and running, I'm going to want to find gatherings of property owners, gatherings of housing providers, landlords, for that pipeline, to try to let people know, hey, we have money to help you renovate your house. And often people don't think about lead abatement. They don't think, they think, oh, I don't have lead. I paint my house every year. I don't have any lead problems. But we would call it lead abatement, even though most people would call it renovation. So the work we do is essentially replace windows, replace doors, replace trims, side housing. We work with the historic restoration, historic preservation folks to make sure that in an area where we can't put vinyl windows in, we don't. We look for wood windows. We were used to doing all of that. So it's a question of finding the groups that we can talk to and explaining to them what we can do. If you've got a house that just needs work, let's talk. And also, when we get to writing the lead hazard control grant, about 25% of the money will be what we call healthy homes, which means not for lead at all, but for things like radon or asbestos or electrical upgrades. Because it doesn't help if we get rid of the lead and the housing doesn't meet code, So we know that, and HUD's given us some money for other things as well. So I want to talk with code enforcement folks. So, and also then parents. It's really helpful to go talk to daycares and school groups so that I can say, listen, if you live in an old house and you're worried about this, and you own the house, give me a call. If you don't own the house, help me to reach out to your landlord. So it's those kinds of introductions would be really helpful.
Kate, we also have a website. It's not super active or anything, but I think the more that we continue to build the resource section, the more activity we'll have. We also have a Facebook page that we could post something to, and have it go back to our website. So feel free to email me and Eric. Eric does more of our website, and I do. Do you have control of our Facebook page too? Or is that me? Yeah. So you could just send it to Eric.
Sure. So on the Windham County website, on the sheriff's website, there is a page now already. It's pretty rudimentary, but there is a page set up. it's got probably still got the job application stuff on it. You know, here's how you apply for the job, because we haven't actually hired our new person yet. But it also talks about the grant program, has my contact information, but I will put it in our chat here too when we're done. But so we can reach each other, and yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to put a little blurb on your website if that's allowed, or link it to the county website. That would be great. My, as a training provider, I have a bunch of websites. I don't have a website for this work because it's really Windham County's work. I'm just a contractor for them. But if you would like to know more about lead in general, I've written a bunch of books. I've done a TED Talk. You know, this isn't about me, so I don't want to go through all that stuff, but just to show that I have experience and I do know what I'm talking about. There's a website called leadpaintclearandsimple.com. All one word, leadpaintclearandsimple.com, which is my work. And it's got all my stuff, my TED Talk and all that. And also Lead EDU, which I'll put these in the chat too, but which is our training site. Sometimes we put free workshops on there, but mostly they're certification workshops for contractors. If you know contractors that want to get ahead of the game, the way it works and get certified right away, the way it works is they just sign up and pay. And in the class, we tell them, if you're willing to work with Windham County, we can reimburse you. Here's how you do it. You fill out a one-page form, give us a W-9, and we will pay you back the money that you paid for training. That seems the simplest thing, rather than try to go out and say, are you in the part of the grant program or you're not? Anybody who takes the class who says they're willing to work with us afterwards, we'll give them the free money. Anything else? As you can see, I'm really passionate about this, so feel free to reach out. My phone number is on the screen here and on my name, if you just hover over me, but I'll put everything else in the chat, and I'm happy to talk about this as long as you'd like.
Hey, just one other quick question. Is there any qualifications to get on the program?
You mean for a landlord or for a contractor?
Either the homeowner or like a renter or a rental apartment.
Yes. So really good question. Yes, there are income qualifications. You have to be not necessarily low income, but moderate income. It doesn't matter about the property owner. They only care about the resident who lives there. So we deal with, you know, landlords who might be multimillionaires. That doesn't matter. It's who lives in the space that we're renovating, and their income is what counts. So they have to fill out an income form, which either they give us a W-2 or a paycheck stub. We only have to verify 30 days worth of income, and they don't have to be low. Like I said, they have to be within the moderate. If you're familiar with the AMI charts, it's 80% of AMI for your region, 80% or lower. We can fund them. And so, yeah, there is that. And occasionally we do get people apply who are over income. And I have to say, I'm really sorry. But even then, I usually try to work with them. Like, is there any time of the year that your income drops? You know, we only need 30 days, right? So for instance, if you're a seasonal worker, let us catch you during your lean time. And so we do our best to qualify people, but yes, there is that. And again, we don't care about the property owner, just the occupant. Anything else? Great. Well, I'm excited to meet you all. I'll pop some things in the chat and then I'll get out of your way. Thank you so much for your time. I hope to hear from you again.
Feel free to stay on too, Kate, if you would like.
I'll stay on
if
for
you
a
have
few
time.
minutes. Okay,
Okay, great.
thanks.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Kate. Moving into our third agenda item, so the ADU program. So I have been working on documents. So far, I have the program outline, and both of these documents will be easily editable to share with Gretchen. For now, they say Dover, right? But you know, swap out the logos and the names of the towns, and we're good to go. I will share. So what? I'm in the process right now of writing the full application, which is the real big one. But that's going to require a lot of like legalese and then review by our legal department. So basically, you know, just a basic overview of the program, kind of how it works. You know, don't start any work until you've talked to us and expect the money. And then the program requirements as they were laid out. Okay, so this is just kind of the first thing that they would find to learn a little bit about the program. And I will send these to you as well. I had hoped to do that this week, and again, kind of got derailed a little bit. So the second one is the homeowner pre-application. So this is what that looks like, the same thing, doesn't it? Did I not close it? There we go. So homeowner pre-application. So this would get sent to Gretchen or I, and this is what would help us to determine right off the bat whether the project they're talking about would be eligible or not, right? It asks some of the biggest questions. Do you own the home? Or, are you the primary owner of the home? That type of thing. Are you current with mortgage, taxes, all of that? Are you comfortable with these rent thresholds? Are you able to obtain additional financing should it be necessary? Are you interested in our program? Are you able to complete the project within 12 months? Again, little disclaimer there, don't start any work until you've talked to us. But basically, they would fill this out just to get Gretchen and I their contact information so that we can open that line of communication to start talking about their project and whether or not it would be feasible, in the property that they're talking about. The larger, once we get through that part, then we start talking about like, okay, now give us like in the full application, it's give us a description of the project, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, all those things. Talks about environmental considerations, was the home built before 1978, knowledge of asbestos. Is your property in the immediate vicinity of any dumps, landfills, gas stations, et cetera, et cetera? Big scaries. Let's see. Would you be removing any trees? Is your home on the historic registry? Are you on a floodplain? If so, do you have flood insurance? So stuff like that. Then they start providing us with things like a copy of their tax bill, and giving us, some deeper information to let us know that they are who's they say they are and things like that. So I will have that full application done for you guys to look at for next month, but I will get you these here very shortly. It is moving forward. It's just, it's one of those things that's on the pile, and then as a new fire starts, they get pushed a little further down, and it will be happening. We just got to finish getting it together. So this is what I have so far. Any questions for me on either of these documents, Keith?
Yeah, if you don't mind, the question of home listed above as primary residence, is that a requirement for this?
I think, Gretchen, we said that they had to be living in the home, correct?
Yeah, we did say that. But we also did have a big discussion, and I'm not sure where it landed, with a potential business. So, like, for instance, there could be a retailer downtown that is using the upstairs for storage. And they are all of a sudden, we don't really need the storage space anymore. We can make this into an apartment. And we were like, yeah, that's a good idea. But they actually don't live on the premise.
Right.
But could they access this program to make that a potential, because they own it, they're there the majority of the time, they're just not sleeping there. So I don't remember where we landed on that. We might have to go back to some notes.
Mhm.
Um,
I was just simply asking because some of the things that I'm looking at, right, is, property owners existing, they might be using this thing as a short-term rental, but they're on an acre where we could put another home on. So I wanted to see, just when I'm putting together pro formas, if this was something that was possible for it. It was the reason behind the question. So it's good to
You
know.
want me to weigh in there, Gretchen, based on zoning?
Yeah, so our zoning is different for each community, but Jessica, if you want to talk about Wilmington, that's fine.
Yep. So in Wilmington, we have 1 acre minimum lots. You can put a duplex on them, under the new law, S100. That, or the Home Act. That is different in the downtown area where there's higher density, but I'm talking about general lots. It has to be 1 acre. You can put a duplex on them. Duplex has to share a wall or a roof. You can also build an accessory dwelling unit, and as you guys mentioned, it does have to be owner living on the property, either in the accessory dwelling apartment or not. So your bylaws are really going to limit you, and it's going to be based on zone. You have to look at what zone you're in, because in the village, it would be completely different.
Yeah, and I think the idea here is that's where kind of this pre-application comes in. It opens that line of communication for myself and Gretchen with the property owner, and then we can start asking some questions to zoning to say, hey, does this work or does this not work, before they go through the process of filling out an entire application and all of those things. You know, because obviously that's going to be a much heavier lift. I think the purpose of the pre-application, again, is just to get them in the door and get them talking to us about their want or need for, you know, an accessory dwelling unit or apartment on their property.
Right. And I think, no, just knowing that going in is good. I also put some stuff about floodplain. I've had some recent applications. A&R is not allowing new residential in, like, we've had some businesses want to turn areas into apartments, not being allowed to. But we've had some hotels wanting to turn things into apartments. So going from residential to residential is okay with them. Going from business or not developed into residential and a flood hazard is, just so you know, that's going to be roadblocked by A&R.
I appreciate all the info. Thank you.
Any other questions on accessory dwelling unit program for right now?
Yeah, just a little, bit of a background, is that, again, is it 3 or 5 that we would be doing in
5
each
each town.
community? 5 for each of the communities, that they would be getting these grants, to build this out. And so it's not, a program that is going to be, um, for everyone. We have limited amount of money, but we were thinking this is a really good program to get that, 1 to 2, employees, hopefully, housed, so I think it's good. Thanks, Eric, for doing this work.
Yeah. I will stop sharing. All right. Moving right along, item number 4 is Gretchen is going to provide us with an update from the Southeast Vermont Housing Coalition.
Okay, so on the Southeastern Vermont Housing Coalition, I was not able to attend the last meeting because I had a family emergency, but I am on the housing developer, the development, and for developers, and they met. It was quite a while ago, it was over a month ago. But the key piece. Now, of course, I can't find my notes. Here we go. I found him. Yeah, it was January 9th that we met, and we were not able to meet the last time because of snow. But this group is really kind of like starting to get together, and talking about what's the mission of really this committee. And, like, I spoke up, and Sue was there actually too. And, I spoke up, and I'm like, really it's about getting, resources and things into private developers' hands, including funding. And, it was really noted that strategically, within the housing community that we're in, because of our agencies that we have, like Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, is supporting private developers really doesn't play well within those communities. So we're going to frame it in a different way, and making that, we're helping to grow the pool of housing creators. And so that's the language that I need to learn at these meetings, so that we can really progress and hopefully get some funding into private developer hands to help us in the Deerfield Valley. We also talked a lot about putting a playbook together for communities like ours, individual communities of you know, their own incentivizing. So we talked a lot about which we have in Wilmington, and I'm pretty sure Dover does too, tax stabilization. So if you're renovating or you're building something, you can stabilize your property taxes over a period of time. So, um, so we talked about other incentives like that that we could, put into this kind of playbook. And we want to build relationships with developers and funders and businesses that need workforce. I think that's a key piece, is going out to those businesses and going, we need your help to um, build housing, to get employees for them. We talked about bringing together, small developers and supporting them in some way. And there's also a discussion about demonstrating the benefits of housing developments on town budgets. And we also talked, and I don't know a lot about it, and maybe Sue does, but there is this thing that the legislature passed, I believe last year, about a 3-year freeze on incremental tax for any new housing. Sue, do you know much about that?
I do not.
Yeah. Okay. Sky was the one who brought that up.
Uh-huh.
So, I'll do some research on that for our next meeting.
Great.
So we have that information. And then the last thing that we talked about there was project advocacy. So like in Wyndham Region, we would help projects, like if they're going through the development review board, supporting them in some way by attending those development review board hearings. Um, you know, pushing out the tax stabilization, using VHIP, which I think is coming back online soon. So those kind of things. Like for instance, in our community, I know that Wheelpad just and the BDCC purchased the old WW building out on Route 9. And, they have a plan to put housing in there as well. And so how can we help support them in getting that, um, funding and things like that for them? So, and there's, what about a regional funding mechanism also? There is this Upper Valley Loan Fund, and I can, I'm going to research that too, and I can see it, how that works. And we have talked about doing a regional fund before within this group. So, Jessica, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention I had talked to Paul up at Wyndham Windsor Housing, and we were trying to get some data for our new town plan coming up. And I was thinking we were around 30 houses. He thought he was about 20, but he did a count, and we've had 26 dwelling units added with the VHIP program, either built or being built. And like you had mentioned, that is coming back up. They actually just updated their web page on that yesterday. That is ready to launch. That was one thing. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I went to the regional plan presentation last night, and Chris Campany brought out a really good point because they're talking about housing targets and how they're going to, peter those down to all the towns and what their housing targets should be, and how people misunderstand that and they think the town's going to be building that housing. And he mentioned how really the best thing towns can do is get that infrastructure so that when a developer can build that housing, it's there. And I think that's really important to, publicize. Gretchen, I know you've done a great job, getting that grant for our infrastructure. But I think we, as a town, should be thinking about what can we do more to help that infrastructure and help those developers build.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, so again, those numbers that she just gave are specifically to Wilmington. And I'm not sure, Eric, do you know if anybody from Dover or Vicky used those funds? The Vermont Housing Improvement? No. Okay, and then I just wanted to give a quick update on the regional development corporations. BDCC is our local one, Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. And they keep an update on legislative things on a weekly basis, and I get that. And so I thought it would be good if I just shared with you that the BDCC, under the housing category of all the things that they're watching, is, really the lack of affordable housing has become a really dangerous restraint on our communities in Vermont, across the state. So what they are trying to work and advocate for is to increase the state investment in infrastructure like water and sewer. They are looking to develop a program related to the infrastructure cost to incentivize developers. And then fund future rounds of important financing tools to incentivize the development of just workforce housing. And within that is the VHIP program, which they're calling 2.0. And then there's a rental revolving loan fund as well. That's through the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, and which will allow for development of rental units for middle income households. And they are working to create further modifications to Act 181, which is the Act 250 permitting piece. So those are the things that the legislature or the RDCs are really trying to advocate for at the state level. And there is a big state, it's called PATH, I think. Is that correct, Sue? That the governor is really kind of excited about, I believe, that will be passing. Hopefully there will be some legislation around that. And that is strictly, it's called Pathway to Accelerate and I can't read my writing, Housing for Vermont. So Alex Farrell at the Department of Housing and Community Development is working on that piece. So I think that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Gretchen. Any questions for Gretchen that weren't already asked as we went through? Perfect. Gretchen did want to touch base on the landlord support group. I know that I was tasked with getting with Cliff on that, and I'm going to be honest, we haven't done that. So that's where it sits, and that's on me. It's not on Cliff at all. So I apologize. And I will touch base with Cliff and see if maybe we can get something together. I don't know how your month looks, Cliff, but maybe we can get something together for March.
Yeah, if you want to send me an email with a couple dates, we can. I know we had a couple ideas that I shared by email, but we didn't really talk much about it together. So we can do that.
Yep. Perfect. Thanks, Cliff. Any other thoughts on that before we end it?
I was just going to say that I'm on a landlord group in Central Mass. We've got about 140 members, and it's a struggle to get more than like 10 people to a group meeting with that many members. So there's going to be a couple struggles, but we can talk about that some more.
Yeah, I think that that will be a struggle, but that's why I was thinking, like maybe we do twice a year kind of a thing, and have some sort of programming around it. Get an expert in to talk about, I don't know, lead abatement or how to properly vet people, vet new renters, um, something like that, and have it in a social kind of a place where people can have a drink or something. Like Valleycraft Ales would be a good one, or
Yeah, we
So-
usually try to get, there's usually like an insurance company that will sponsor it, so they'll usually buy the pizza, and we try to get one speaker that is interested in getting in front of a group of landlords to kind of talk about their services, whether it's de-letting or insurance or oil contracts, utilities, things like that.
yeah, that sounds great. Love it.
All right. Well, that's it for our agenda. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 13th, at 1 o'clock. So, Cliff, I will touch base with you before then. I will get you any ADU documents I have in the meantime. And we'll plan on meeting then. If there's anything you'd like to see on the agenda, it helps to have it to me typically the end of the week before, the beginning of the week of the meeting. So I'll send a reminder out like I usually do, but if you have things you want to talk about, let me know. Other than that, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in March.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.